Welcome back. You're watching Morning Live. Thanks so much for being with us. Now, retail healthcare store Clicks, despite the apology by the healthcare group and the retraction of a print advertisement that created a national outcry, says there's still a lot of anger, which they acknowledge over what many view as the reinforcement of a narrative that portrays white as better than black. The advertisement showed two sets of images identifying black hair as dry and damaged, as well as frizzy and dull, and it showed white hair as fine and flat on another image and also normal on a further image. Now, people pointed out on social media that this is not the first time that this company has used prejudicial advertisements which are insulting to black communities. The EFF, that's the Economic Freedom Fighters, they've also weighed in on this issue and called for Clicks to close all their stores. And joining us now to discuss this matter are Brightness Mangolothi, who is director at Litmus Consultancy, and Solly Moeng, a brand reputation management advisor and CEO of DonValley. Thanks so much to both of you, Solly and Brightness, for speaking to us this morning.
Happy to be here.
So, Solly, let me start with you. It's 2020. Not the first time we've seen this. It seems to surface ever so often, and there's always the outcry. But is the anger justifiable? And what exactly is this advertisement underpinning about black people?
Well, the anger is justified. I saw the ad. I have a daughter who has hair like the one I saw in there. My daughter's hair is not dull. It's beautiful. I think that, when a company, when a brand keeps making the same mistake over and over again, it's no longer a mistake. I think there's something wrong in the corporate culture at this company. They can't keep saying and doing the same thing over and over again. When people work, especially in the positions where they interface with the public or where they put services and products into the public space, they have to understand the communities in which they work. They have to understand the markets they are targeting with their products. They have to understand the sensitivities in those markets. And clearly, there is something wrong here. They cannot. Somebody looked at this ad from when it came in from whoever created it and said, "Great, we're good to go." And that person needs to account. The company needs to tell us why it go to what kind of teams do they have? Do they have mixed teams where different people are able to give different opinions about maybe this is not good for that community, maybe this is not good, actually not for this or that other community. Racism is bad. It sends a wrong impression about the company, that it's insensitive to the feelings of the people out there, and it's wrong. It shouldn't have happened, and a mere apology and retraction is not enough. Something inside the company has to change in the way they do things.
But evidently not, because if Clicks, having made a faux pas previously, or maybe more than that, didn't see the need up until this stage to actually change the way in which these matters are dealt with, why would they see a need for that now, Brightness? Because I think it's a bit reductionist to simply say it's insensitive to black people. This has to be questioned, and you have to actually pry more deeply, as Solly says, from the creatives. How does this even come about?
Sakina, it's a very interesting question that you are asking. Maybe what we need to start engaging on is appreciating that racism is a phenomenon and it evolves. And it has become a trend in South Africa where there is a racialized construction of female beauty. The issue of colorism is very profound in some of the advertisements that you see at Clicks. The issue of the hair. I mean, for me, these advertisements are actually perpetuating white supremacy that renders anything that is non-white as insufficient. There is a conversation about black people lacking. So what you are seeing in these advertisements, they're actually saying if you are black, you are lacking, and white is better. So it's a construct between black and white people. And it is unfortunate because when we look into the issue of the hair, even white people wear wigs, even white people wear hair extension, even white people color their hair. But what you are seeing on the advertisement, it actually echoes the message that white is better than black. which is not a good narrative. I think what is currently happening, there have been numerous advertisements that echoes issues of racism from the side of Click. But what is very important is the role of social media. The people on the social media, they've picked this up, they started engaging. Some political organization also came on board to say, you know what, it ends here. It cannot be business as usual. And hence now they are coming forward and making apologies. As Solly correctly said, you cannot continuously make apologies. We cannot take that anymore. There is a responsibility that organization needs to have. I know for sure that there is always a conversation about diversify your team. Diversity is one part. But what we also have identified in organization, even when they diversify, the institutional culture does not embrace Black people. So there's a deeper conversation that needs to take place, which has not really even begun in our organization. I mean, in the workplace, when you talk about hair for Black people, the reason that the deeply embedded psychological impact of the conversation of hair, we haven't had. When you go into the workplace, if you have the hair like myself, you are looked at, it's a boy's cut. You're not really a female. You need to have a foreign hairstyle to look very feminine. And that's not the way to go. I mean, as I looked into this advertisement, I was reminded of the 13-year-old girl at the Pretoria High School who said it's enough. And who decided from that particular point, it cannot be because it's my hair that it needs to be straightened, that it becomes acceptable. It seems to me companies are not valuing Black people, but they take value in the money that is brought in by Black people.
Solly, of course, there would naturally be those who would spring to the defense of Clicks by telling us, well, actually, this was not a Clicks advertisement per se. It was for Tresemme, which is a product of Unilever. And, you know, I want us to peel back those layers, going back to your earlier point about the creative process, because Unilever itself has a reputation. If you look at, Southeast Asia, where they are known, and there have been lots of backlash against Unilever for skin whitening products, for example, that they advertise and how those are advertised. If we just peel back to the creative process, is there enough diversity in that particular process to ensure that we do not continuously see the type of insensitive and stereotypical advertising that we see?
Look, there are several things. First of all, let's talk about diversity in the creative teams. A lot of times, and I've seen it, I've worked in that environment, all right? Sometimes people think diversity is having a few Black people in the team. A lot of times they bring into the team young Black people who are afraid to speak out, or who, if they try to speak out, nobody takes them seriously, or they shut down, they shut up, or when they speak up because they're mindful of their career and their livelihoods, they just say things to echo their bosses. You need to have people in there who are able to raise their hand and say, no, this is not acceptable. And they have to they must be given the space to say, I told you, or I'm not signing up to this. So the creative guys come in, they get a brief, they come up with a team, with whatever they come up with, and at some point this thing gets signed off by somebody. So Clicks cannot blame somebody else for this. The fact is, if it's not Clicks' problem or fault, why is it pulling it? Why is it apologizing? Why apologize for somebody else's mistake? It's because somebody at Clicks saw this thing from the creative side and said, well, we can run with this thing. And that is why the problem is they do not have people in the team clearly who understand the sensitivities out there. And the values in the company must be such that when a mistake has been made before, the mistake does not happen again. If it does, there's got to be consequences. An apology on itself is not enough. I don't think that we should shut down the stores. I think that the EFF is going too far. You're not going to kill an ant with a nuclear bomb. But the lessons have to be learned here. And if we have the equality code in South Africa, maybe somebody needs to take a click to the equality code. It has offended people, and I think it is offensive, but correction has to be made. We all grew up in racial silos in South Africa. I don't think that Clicks went out to say, you know what, let's go after Black people. I don't think any company does that. It's just that they're insensitive. They don't understand the sensitivities. You have to learn. People have to be taught these things. Black people think some crazy things about white people. White people think about some crazy things, and I'm generalizing here, not everybody, of course.
Yeah, but sorry.
Colored people, Indian people. So those insensitivities exist in South Africa. People have to be taught that actually those preconceived ideas that we were taught about blacks, colors, Indians, whites, you have to get rid of them at some point, especially when you are in a professional environment.
Is it insensitive, though? Is it as simple as that? Because, as we say, this is not the first time that this type of faux pas has been made, and it's much more than a faux pas. Even that is actually, letting them get away with the rack on the knuckles. It is just absolutely despicable. It's not the first time that this has happened. So why should we then now ascribe it to insensitivity? Surely you would have learned that lesson the first time around. The second, why are we still calling it insensitive as opposed to a deliberate act whereby you know that there are no consequences for your actions?
Well, deliberate would mean somebody said, you know what, let's go after black people. I really don't think they would be stupid enough to go that far. But I think that there's got to be consequence. I think that, especially because, and we all agree, it's happened before.
But it's not about going after black people, Solly. It's about not seeing anything wrong by characterizing black hair in a certain way. Surely there's something wrong with that perception.
Of course there is. There is something wrong with that person. There's something wrong with a team that puts a product, whether it's in Kathmandu or in China or in South Africa or in elsewhere, where into a community that has certain sensitivities, and you have people in your team that are not sufficiently representative in terms of thinking, understanding, empathy, to put stuff into communities that end up with the kind of things that we're discussing today. It's wrong, and there's got to be consequence. But the question is, what kind of consequence are we asking for here? I mean, there's sufficient regulation in South Africa for this sort of thing not to happen. Somebody has to report them something. There's got to be some kind of consequence. Maybe someone has to lose their job. They have to be fined and maybe made to pay an amount into a scholarship or something like that. There's got to be consequence. I don't think an apology and a retraction are sufficient. I do not think so.
Brightness, simply bring you in. What's your view? Is that enough? Is it enough to just plead ignorance? Is it enough to hold the laws before these companies? Because the laws have been there, and in spite of the laws, they have still transgressed.
I personally think it's not unconscious, it's not ignorance, it's arrogance of our advertising organization. Maybe we also need to unpack the issue of, let's go to the classroom, let's go to the university. What we also need to unpack, what are these creative directors are taught in the classroom? And this takes us to the next conversation where we talk about decolonization of the curriculum. Who is teaching these people who are doing this type of advertisement? So once we unpack, we need to look at the value chain. We cannot just look at clicks, but we need to also look backward and say, what is really happening? It also speaks about their suppliers. Who is doing the advertisement? It's not just a clicks advertisement. This is another organization. But the reality is that the advertisement was on the social media, on the website of Clicks. So the Clicks organization needs to account. Maybe we also need to unpack what is an advertisement. When we talk about an advertisement, it's something that is paid for. And if it's paid for, there is a sponsor, there is someone who approves the processes. So that means that somebody said, you know what, we're good to go, everything is okay, we are happy with this. So there's no way that people can just put information on your social media platform without you being unaware of that. It is taking us lightly as South Africans to just say, you know what, we apologize. It doesn't align to our values. We respect. It has become a norm in South Africa that organizations are doing that. I mean, we have Heineken doing the same thing. We had Dove doing the same thing. So it's a narrative that actually exists. When we talk about issues of BEE, are these organizations transformed? And a part of me says they are not transformed. I might not have all the information, but there's a part of me that says they are not transformed. They are not doing what they're supposed to be doing. It's unfortunate that in South Africa, in this week, we will be all complaining, talking about this, but come next week, it will be business as usual. But it's also unfortunate that you find other white people, if you look into the comments on social media, who trivialize this. Because for me, with white supremacy, white people have never had to confront their race. Race for them, it's not an issue. But with us, Black people, it's an issue. Let's look also into the issue of Black people. There's an intersection, what we call intracultural dynamics, where you find some Black people who also trivialize. It also speaks about class. Which class are they from? There are Black people who actually say, you know what? If you attack cliques, that actually means we'll be unemployed. There are Black people who say, you know what? Away with cliques. We cannot continue like this. And there are those elite who say, you know what? Black people always like to pull the race card. This is an important conversation that we need to have. So within us, Black people, and there's also conversation who say, you know, I buy my cliques tissues and they're the cheapest, they're 12 packs or is it 18 packs for 79 rands. So what does it mean now? Should I not be buying that? So those conversations, if we continue saying we need to be rewarded for what cliques is not doing right, then it will continue to be business as usual. In South Africa, there are three things that we need to engage on: the issue of inequality, the issue of poverty, the issue of unemployment. Why we have unemployment and issues of poverty, it's deeply embedded in the issues of inequality. And this inequality speaks exactly to some of the advertisement that we are seeing. And we have a case where Black people, everything that is Black is just not right. I mean, if you look into the word Black, there's the word lack. There's this narrative that actually says there's lack when it comes to Black people, blackmailing. Everything that is Black is just not right. And everything that is white is pure, it's acceptable, it's about peace. So we need to start engaging. I mean, we've been talking. We need to have action taking place in our South African.
Well, Brightness, I'm sorry to interrupt there, but unfortunately we're out of time on this one. No doubt this conversation will continue here on SABC and across social media and other platforms. But thank you to our guests, Brightness Mangolothi, Director of Litmus Consultancy, and Solly Moeng, Brand Reputation Management Advisor and CEO of DonValley, talking to us about whether the recent clicks advertisement was a reinforcement of racial stereotypes. And that's our question of the day as well, about how this has affected your business with the brand. Let us know at Morning Live. SABC has the clicks advert, which they have subsequently withdrawn and apologized for, affected your relationship with the business.